AARP.
Those are the smooth sounds of today's guest, David Fowler and friends, playing Pent Up House. Dave is a longtime musician in Nebraska, math professor at the University of Nebraska, and someone who has given his time and energy to playing at some of the retirement homes here in Lincoln. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renault. David, thanks so much for taking some time to come by today. We've got a little music we're going to play. We're going to talk about some of your math and some of your musical memories. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Jerry.
Let's talk about the early days. You started playing violin pretty early as a
That's
child.
right. My father was a violinist, and he was a music teacher. My mom played piano. There was a lot of music in the house. My first teacher was Morris Collier, longtime string teacher in Lincoln. He was a young bachelor then, teaching in the schools. My mom would have him come over for Sunday dinner. And I went from Morris to Emanuel Wishnow at the university. That was a level up for sure. And from there to playing in the Lincoln Youth Symphony, which was getting started. Then I graduated from high school, and that was the end of my formal violin teaching.
Yeah, now you got a lot of help from your dad too, right? He was a violin player as well.
That's right. He was, but he didn't interfere with the other teachers were telling me. And
Well, that's good.
when we were working with Mr. Wishnow, that was enough advice right there.
So you like classical music,
Oh, I love classical music.
but you had lots of other music going on in the house, and that helped you kind of expand your ideas of music.
Oh, I remember hearing Rhapsody in Blue on 78 RPM records.
Fun.
And children's records, folk songs, all the kinds of music going on. Band concerts in the Plants Mouth band station. Very rich background in all kinds of music.
Very good. Lots of fun. So you had sort of an interesting experience that kind of changed your direction as you moved into bluegrass, and that was probably meeting a very well-known Lincoln musician, Steve Hansen.
That's right. Before I met Steve, I began to get. I think what I was really attracted by was the sound of the five-string banjo, either in old-time songs, like old singers like Doc Boggs or something, singing strange old songs, or modern Flatt and Scruggs, Stanley, the Country Gentlemen. I really got serious about bluegrass, going to festivals. So I tried to learn the banjo, and I remember the first time I saw Steve playing with his Bluegrass Crusade. And you know what went through my mind was, they don't have a fiddle player in that band. so, so I put the five string on the wall and started learning Orange Blossom Special.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, bluegrass and classical music, quite a bit different in a lot of ways because the classical music, you read the notes on the charts, but when you get into bluegrass, it's a little bit more. You get to choose what you're going to play in some instances.
Well, yes, I think the roots of bluegrass are in old mountain music and in gospel music and church hymns. And it's much more directed, there's more direct interaction with the audience with it.
Yeah.
And it's distinct from jazz. It's a style all in its own. I love bluegrass also, for sure.
Yeah. Now, bluegrass with the Crusade, it kind of morphed into as you sort of expand your musical career. I know lots of the guys in the band also got into playing some jazz, which is a kind of a whole different thing, and you did as well. A couple of the guys, you had a really fun band called the Gentlemen of Jive, which played around town. So tell me about the jazz part of it. How did that become?
Well, the transitions are, you hardly notice them. You add to your bluegrass repertoire a Western swing song. And once you're into Western swing, you're really into Western jazz. And so then you begin to listen to Western jazz and you start hearing classic 30s swing songs. And at some point, you'll sooner or later, you'll run into Django Reinhardt.
Oh, yes.
And that whole thing. Then you kind of reach, it's like the garden of branching paths.
Right.
And then there's a path into jazz. It's sort of like you enjoyed advanced algebra. Do you want to go on in calculus, or would you rather, go to trade school or
Sure,
something?
just stay where you are. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Now, one other thing about the musical career I think we should talk about, that you and your wife Carolyn did some really interesting things with the Arts Council.
That's right. When I met Carolyn and then found out that she was a really good pianist, she'd been accompanist for some university choir groups and so on. So I wrote out some fiddle tunes, simple fiddle tunes for her. And Nan Graff, who knew everybody, knew what we were doing, and suggested I talk to Jane Hood, the Humanities Council. So we worked out something on traditional music in Plains culture. And my idea was from Sod House to the early Opera House. And we did, I think, over the years, 200 different presentations around Nebraska.
Wow.
To historical societies, to church groups, to senior groups. And when we started, even, people would come up and say, "You mentioned barn dances. We used to sneak out of our house." Or my dad would let us go to a barn dance if we promised that there wouldn't be any jazz there, or even what was there, So by the time we finished, we heard less of that.
Yeah.
We played over a 25-year period, and the people who remembered rolling up the rugs in the parlor, they had kind of moved on also.
Very good.
And from that point also, I think the song, one day I was in Dirt Cheap Records, and I heard a version of Round Midnight. And I thought, something about that song. So I got a chart and looked at it. And that led to Night and Dazed and Steve Hansen.
Sure, very good.
Gentlemen of Jive.
Okay, so you've had this really long, wonderful career playing around town. It seems like it is culminated in a recording process that you have going on, that you're working with, I think, your brother and Steve Hansen and several other really fine musicians, and you're doing a compilation CD. I guess these are your favorite songs. Tell us a little bit about the CD process.
Well, we have something like 24 songs that we finally recorded over a long period of time. It was interrupted by quarantines and all that. But the person I work with the most is Michael Harries. He's gypsy jazz, guitar, what's the superlative to, not fanatic, but all right. He's
a great musician.
He has a great collection of guitars, and so he plays the rhythm parts. We have a bass player. They laid down these tracks, and we added to them some songs from Django originals to other songs from that time, sort of like that.
Well, it sounds just wonderful. Why don't we take a we heard a little bit of Pen Up House
That's right.
at the start of the show, but one of my favorite songs of all time is one of them you do on here. It's a song called Blue
That's
Skies.
right. And just let me say, that song, we got a lot into a 2.5-minute song. We have a counter melody behind the sax solo. We have call and response. We have a violin solo that I based on Red Norvo vibraphone solo that I worked out. And then Reynold Peterson sings it also.
Sounds like fun. Well, let's take a quick listen to it.
Yes, right.
I'm looking forward to hearing the whole thing. I've heard several of the songs, and it's really good stuff, and so wonderful. Let's talk about the math real fast because it was another part of your life, and you've spent a lot of time with training methods and trying to get people to understand a little bit about math. We've got a video here that you have created. Let's play that and a little talk through that, and you can give people a little indication of what it was like to be in your class.
That's right. The Zen part is called the beginner's mind. The idea that an expert knows one way to do something, the beginner knows many other ways. And so the student teacher starts out and says a right angle, and someone in the class says, "Hey, teach, what's a left angle?" Or "What's a wrong angle?" And those are actually good questions in a smart aleck way. So I put this idea then how to talk to understand the beginner. And the other thing I'm really interested in is to show that geometry is also a matter of movement. So you see, right angle comes from upright, and the angles can be stated in any way. So here's the geometry part. But what I wanted to show is something I worked out this summer in a class on Alexander technique and movement. It was an incredible class and I'm showing how to represent perpendicular bisector choreographed. In other words, I'm going to show, see the movement here, and I'll show how we would work this out. So first of all, a little bit of vocabulary, what perpendicular means and how the Romans measured straightness. They had a tool called the perpendiculum. And then we'll go to, here's the class, the Barstow Institute, and I'm in the back row right there at the back. And then there I am demonstrating how they measured. It's sort of like a plumb bob, except that it comes out a little bit. Now the next thing will show you the actual sequence. Here they are working out, you could call it the perpendicular bisector dance. They have a cardboard square. They have to measure where the midpoint is. They did that by walking around behind him until they'd lined up their chords and then straightening out again. So they found the perpendicular bisector. They never used measuring tools. They did it all with just simple hand techniques. And the movement people thought it was really great.
I just find it fascinating that, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, that you know, math is what it is. It's, you know, 2 + 2 is 4. It's always 2 + 2 is always 4. Music can be a little bit more creative. That's an interesting balance you have between those two.
Well, that's math. As I was saying, in different cultures, like people who were in Ireland recently may have seen the Book of Kells and these incredible overlapping knotted Celtic designs. That's really mathematics from those early days. They used algorithms to figure these things out, or African rhythm patterns, or music and mathematics together. And so this pattern recognition underlies music and math in many different cultures. And 2 + 2 in probably any language is 4, but geometry or algebra is different wherever you go.
It's over my head anyway. You're still playing. You're still playing at some of the retirement homes around town, so
Yes,
I think that's great. So people could look for you out there. Boy, we're out of time. I just knew this was going to go way too quick. Always fascinating to talk to you. I hope you'll come back again sometime, and maybe we can
I want to
talk
explain
some
my
more.
shirt someday.
Yes, the shirt about math is one thing that we need to do. Anyway, thank you so much for
Thanks for
coming
having
by.
me, Jerry.
Looking forward to seeing the CD, and thanks to all of you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, it's never too late to live and learn.